Welcome back to another episode of the Dynasty Dingers podcast. Today is Thursday, June 12th. We have no Doc for you this week. He's currently out saving the country. So I have a short episode for you. We're going to go around the league, touch base on some of the top 100 prospects, what they've been doing, where they're at. A couple of the names tossed in here just to give you a brief update, either good or bad. So we'll start it off. Jacob Misiorowski is making his major league debut tonight for the Milwaukee Brewers. He will be pitching against the Cardinals. There's definitely something to tune into. Or I'd say maybe check back on tomorrow when this episode comes out. See how Misiorowski did. Kind of projecting a 4-inning start for him, right? We're looking at higher K rate. I think the really big piece to watch is how many walks he has tonight. He has done a really good job limiting hard contact and damage this season at AAA. Brewers desperately need a frontline starter, and Misiorowski, while his innings may be limited per start, should give that high upside return. We also saw Roman Anthony get called up this week. He is currently 1 for 12 coming into Thursday's action. We've seen the young kids get off to a slower start. No need to panic. Roman Anthony does look like he's ready to be a big leaguer. More excitement to come from him. Jack Higlione had a 4 for 4 game on Sunday. I was actually in Chicago to watch that. Looked really good at the plate. The approach was solid. Wasn't trying to hit the ball a mile. Kind of led to the 4 for 4 game. Again, it is interesting with Chicago's pitching staff, right, being not as good as the rest of the league. We could say 4 for 4 is not as impressive, but I think what it shows from Kegs is kind of like I said with Anthony, deserves to be up and should get more opportunity there. A fun one here for us, Connor Griffin made his high A debut, currently 4 for 10. No strikeouts or walks, 1 stolen base, 1 caught stealing. Few of the wonderful Twitter accounts or X accounts had shown really high exit velocity for a couple of Connor Griffin's hits. It'll be nice to kind of gather this data from Griffin from high A, right? We talked with his dad a few weeks ago and kind of said we were not concerned with the overall lack of walks just because of the attack, and the numbers have been so incredible this season. We think high A will be a really good opportunity to show maybe more patience as well as that aggressiveness to continue to do damage. Samuel Basallo continues a great start to his season at 20 years old, batting .252, 14 home runs in 139 at-bats. Splits look good. I took a look at him today just to see, is there anything we should concern ourselves with when he faces lefties? It's almost equal when it comes to the batting average. I think that's really important for a young lefty, especially a kid at his age, his level. Basallo, we have been talking about this season and projecting when does he come up? I'm not sure. A couple weeks here, I think the Super 2 deadline passes where these organizations get yet another year of arbitration, basically get another year of these players. So we could see Samuel Basallo end of this month, maybe early July. Have to kind of see where the Orioles are going and what's going on with Kobe Mayo. That's the next player. Mayo now being moved to first base primarily. This could be Mayo's last chance to really have everyday playing opportunity with the Orioles, to really show himself as a big leaguer. With Samuel Basallo right behind him, we could see a leapfrog really quickly in this organization. Moving on to a Red Sox, and you guys know how I am with names, so I'm probably going to butcher this, but Freddy Encarnacion for the Red Sox, recently promoted to high A, 7 total at-bats, already has 2 home runs. If you've tracked him at all this season, like I have, big power potential, great exit velocities. Again, some great Twitter threads to dive in on this player. It's spelled Freili, and that's Encarnacion. The Red Sox just keep pushing these elite prospects out. I think Encarnacion's a name that we're going to start to get really familiar with this season as we keep going. Moving on to the Rays, Joe Boyle keeps dominating. On June 7th, he had 7 innings, 1 walk, 7 Ks. Now, while Joe may not be a prospect still within the confines of the tag, Joe is at AAA. And I know in a lot of our leagues, especially the 30s, the 20s, Joe's an asset that we need up at the major league level. I think the question is just when he gets called up by the Rays, and then if that control sticks at the major league level. Chase Burns for the Reds, AAA debut went very well. 5 1/3 innings, 4 walks, 7 strikeouts. Another name kind of like Boyle that we're expecting up sooner than later. And then there was a really interesting post that Ross Jensen had this week, owner of Scout the Stat Line and Prospects Live. It was comparing the big 3 pitching prospects. You have Andrew Painter, Bubba Chandler, Chase Burns. And his question was just, who is the best prospect? And it was Chase Burns. Thought that was pretty interesting because what we've seen from Burns this season, definitely in the numbers, show a better outcome than the other two. I think Chandler's probably closer, but Burns' ability to punch batters out is elite. I think for me, the question is mechanics. We watch Burns pitch. That output is just so violent. I loved him at Wake. Tennessee had good output as well. There's a lot going on with Burns, and I hope he stays healthy. From a prospect perspective, we want to see that. From a major league product perspective, we also want to see that. But I think this will be an interesting conversation to look back on in a few years when we look at Painter, Chandler, and Burns as who was the best pitching prospect and who are you valuing in dynasty more than the others. Moving over to the Rockies, Charlie Condon heating up now at high A, batting 386 with 2 home runs, has more walks than strikeouts with 18 walks to 16 strikeouts. I think it's a little too early for everyone to say, hey, look, he is still a great hitter, but it is looking much better than last year. That wrist injury he had early in the preseason looks to be healed. We want to see more of those power numbers come out of him, but so far, definitely putting up the average. I think that power will come. We saw it in college. Moving over to the White Sox, we have Kyle Teal's major league debut. This is not huge news, but in deeper leagues, maybe 2-catcher dynasty leagues or 30-man teams, Kyle Teal's a nice call up. So far, batting 250, showing a little more speed than people expected, and I think that's a fun piece. But Kyle Teal will probably see some time at first base, DH, and then behind the dish. It will be interesting to see how the White Sox decide to use him long term. I would expect maybe first base might be next year, since he really didn't log any time in the minor leagues there this year. But who knows? They may just throw him out there and let him learn on the job. Sticking with the White Sox, Hagen Smith MRI came back clean a few weeks ago. This is kind of old news, but I did want to touch on it. Hagen Smith being a guy that the White Sox invested a lot in, I'm still expecting them to use him as a starter, right? They passed up on Jack Higlione for Hagen Smith, and that was to have a frontline starter, someone that could potentially replace Garrett Crochet in this organization. And, the elbow injury could have been devastating. As of now, it seems like they avoided catastrophe. So I think check back on Hagen Smith once he gets back in games. I didn't see that he was pitching yet, but we will need to see some more data on him this year and hopefully a healthy return. Moving over to the Dodgers, Jose DePaula seems ready for Double-A. He's still walking more than he's striking out. Zaire Hope, kind of the same situation. Ks are a little bit high, but the walk rate is also strong for Hope. Both of these players I expect to be promoted to Double-A very, very shortly and potentially used as trade bait for the Dodgers as they continue to march towards the postseason. A little news out of Tigers. Bryce Rayner out for the season with shoulder surgery. This is devastating news because Bryce, much like Connor Griffin, putting together a really nice 2025 full season debut. Velocities look great from Rayner. Average, everything we're seeing looks like a really complete ball player. And then to dislocate that shoulder, it's a pretty hard injury. I searched for if it was labrum or rotator cuff. Rotator cuff is so much more severe than the labrum. I wasn't able to find any news, but they are expecting him back and at full strength by next spring training. I think that's definitely something to monitor. I'm holding. If I currently have him on a roster, I don't want to trade that with the potential of such massive upside. We're going to have to see, though, how he comes back from this injury because it was his throwing shoulder. Back to the Red Sox, Franklin Arias continues to impress in high A, batting 340 over 33 games. Power and speed seem to be a little bit down this season for Arias, but when you're betting 340 at high A at the age he is, it doesn't so much matter. This kid just continues to impress with all the conversation around Jesus Made, Luis Pena, Connor Griffin, right? All these sub 20-year-olds. I think it's really interesting to see Arias just put these numbers up because at this point, he's got to be in that mix. And I just don't see him attached to those players as much as he should be. Moving to the Washington Nationals organization, Travis Sikora continues his torrid start, pitching at high A right now. I think at this point, we talked about those three names, Painter, Chandler, and Burns. Once those graduations happen, it's going to be really hard for Sikora not to be looked at potentially as the number one pitching prospect in baseball. I would like to see the Nationals organization allow him to start to build up more volumes in these games, 5-6 innings. He's also coming back from a leg labrum surgery, so they're probably being careful with him yet again. I also want to see him at Double-A some point this season, and we could be looking at a 2026 debut for Sikora. I don't know that we'll get that out of camp, but maybe May or June of 2026, we could be talking about Sikora entering the major league fold, and with his strikeout upside, we could be talking about a top 30 pitcher, top 40 pitcher right away. So keep your eyes on Sikora. I think this is probably the last chance to target him. Price is going to be high in Dynasty. I personally would not be trading him, but this is, again, possibly the last chance, because once they start to stretch him out a little bit more, I think everyone's going to view him as, the fourth pitching prospect. And after those promotions, number one. Another pitching prospect that we had a lot of hype for coming into the season, Jackson Ferris, off to somewhat of a rough start in 2025, sitting at a 5.37 ERA in 11 total games. So those were 9 starts. Ferris is a guy I liked. Good strikeout numbers, started to limit the damage, but the damage seems to be back in that Dodgers organization. So Ferris and Hope, we're traded for Michael Busch from that Cubs deal. Ferris and Hope in last year's element were playing really well. Hope still looks great. Ferris seems to need to figure some things out. Moving over to Seattle, we have Feldman Celestine. Decent but slow start, slashing 280, 321, 363 in 42 games. I think this might be a buying window for Celestine. Like, he's not in the same category as the Maid, the Pena, the Griffin, as well as the Arias, as I had mentioned earlier, but there's still a lot to like there. He has taken a little bit slower approach with his development coming out of that injury after his signing year and then being injured the year that followed. So I think this might be a really good time to target him. He was going top 60 in 30-man startups last year. So, people were still evaluating him as almost a top 50 prospect. Staying with Seattle, Harry Ford, slashing 312, 425, 476. I mean, he's real close to the 345 threshold we consider elite. Question mark is obviously with Cal Raleigh hitting home runs almost every day in Seattle, where does Harry Ford play? We're going to have to wait and see. I still think Ford is a great prospect. I hope to see him maybe DH in Seattle by August or September, get some big league at-bats and really see where these numbers can translate, because at this point, it seems he's done everything he can at AAA. Moving over to the Blue Jays, we have Trey Savage being bumped up to AA. Dominating start. No way around it for you, Savage, in 2025. I think now that he's in AA, this may be the appropriate level. And this could be a player that, if continues to dominate through 5-8 starts at AA, I hate to say it, but like, Blue Jays may just call him up. We need the arms in fantasy. The waiver wire right now in Dynasty and in redraft is kind of scarce, and Savage might make a push for at least some innings with the Blue Jays this year. I don't think it's as likely as him not getting it, but I'm not ruling it out. AA in his performance will really show where he's at. Again, if he dominates, I could see him up this season. Cam Caminiti is starting his season finally. I know he was delayed a little bit. He made his A-ball debut, 5 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. So really strong performance from Caminiti. Still one of the youngest players in his draft class. Not enough data for me to really give you an overall profile yet, but nice to see him making his A-ball debut, and hopefully a lot more starts from him this season. Over to the Phillies, we have Eduardo Tate, still impressing at A-ball. Strikeouts are a little bit high, but under 25%. So again, age to level, what he's doing, a lot to like in this profile. We've watched him for now a couple of years, got really excited about him end of 2024 season. So, nothing really changed there. Trey Morgan for the Rays, more of the same in 2024. We've only seen 26 games, but he's slashing 298, 416. Fantastic, right? Then we get to the slug, 362, no home runs. So is this a major league profile? I don't know, right? We know the contact plays, we know the patience in the on-base plays, but the lack of power from that position, just don't know if it's a big league starter. And even from a 30-man perspective, I'd like to have him for depth, but I don't know what kind of return he'd get me in trades, and I just don't know what kind of production he would be there. Kind of flip an opposite side of the profiles here. Jose Briceño for the Tigers. It's been the talk of prospect circles for the last few weeks, batting 264, 397 on base percentage, and a 604 slug, 13 home runs with 32 walks and 34 strikeouts and 144 total at-bats at high A. Turns 21 in September. So, we're seeing a kid still age to level that's pretty solid. Like to see him get the AA this year, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, so that we get half a season of production where he's really against a competition where, again, age to level is strong. The power seems to be legit. We saw that in the Arizona Fall League where he won AFL MVP. Prospect is continuing to rise for Briceño. Back to Seattle, we have Johnny Formello. Did get placed on the IL, if I am correct, last week. I looked and dug a little bit to see what was going on with him. It didn't seem to be anything too serious. It is flashing power, though. 18 games, has 5 home runs. This is a guy that a lot of the industry experts have pegged as someone that just has it. And we've seen in the flashes, Johnny Formello being a really good player, but we need to see this in an entire season of consistency and health. That's the one tag I'll put on Formello now is just we need to see the health. Another former prep bat, this one a little more recently than Farmello, Theo Gillen for the Rays, 281, 432, 439 slash in 33 games. Again, coming from the prep ranks, this is his first season. Not a great debut last year for Gillen, but is really putting together a strong 2025. I think he's definitely a target in deeper dynasty leagues. I like Gillen a lot. I think this is profiling for me as someone. I hate to comp Christian Yelich. Kind of toolsy player. Should hit for average, should add some weight, had some power, should add some speed. Him and Farmello, both good baseball players, guys I want in my minor league system. Speaking of good baseball players, we have Carson Benj, not a prep bat, a collegiate bat, and a former two-way player, starting to really impress. 4 home runs, 11 stolen bases in 51 games. His slash is great, sitting at a 307, 421, 503 at high A. I would expect Carson Bench to get the promotion as well to Double A at some point this season. And, we've talked about this a lot, me and Doc have, where these two-way players, they need a little more time to really focus on just whatever they've chosen, pitching or hitting. For Benj, it is hitting, and we're already seeing that slash that I just spoke on. We should continue to see really good production from Benj as he continues to develop. Drawing over to the Diamondbacks, we are almost done here, people. 2 draft picks from the 2024 class, both performing very well. Prep bat and Slade Caldwell moved up to high A recently. He hit 294, 460, and 454 in his A ball performance this year. Great numbers. Obviously, promoting him to high A was the right choice there. And then Ryan Waldschmidt, batting 281 with a 435 on base percentage and a 482 slug, currently with 9 home runs and 7 stolen bases at high A. Again, Waldschmidt being the collegiate bat and Caldwell being the prep bat. Looks like the Diamondbacks have 2 really good outfield prospects here. I would expect Caldwell to continue for at least a couple more months at high A. Recent promotion, just has a game or 2 under his belt there. And then Waldschmidt probably getting that Double A bump very soon here. Maybe they let him and Caldwell play a little bit together there at high A. But again, I would expect Waldschmidt to be promoted very shortly. Moving back to the Mets, Jonah Tong, another strong start on Monday, 5 1/3, 1 run allowed, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. The 2025 season for Tong is just absolute domination. We have a lot of the concerns we see on X and from some of the analysts of mechanics and the fastball and this and that, but the numbers are undeniable at this point for Tong. He continues to climb the starting pitching prospect ranks. And then last name I have for you today, another starting pitcher that is climbing. That's Gage Jump. 5 games at Double A so far. He's got a 0.92 ERA in 29 1/3 innings, 35 Ks, 8 walks. Gage Jump, much like Jonah Tong, just continues week after week to rise the ranks. I don't want to say that I'd be buying either just because of the price point. Jump being a new list this year, a new guy to the list this year, also is a little riskier. Tong has put up these strikeout numbers throughout the last couple of years of his minor league career. So, we have more consistency there, but Gage Jump, if you got him in FYPDs or you were able to make the addition through the waiver wire this season, a name that's giving you great value and a piece that, because we don't necessarily have the track record, might be a really strong piece to throw in a trade if you're a contending team, where you can look at the track record and the history that we've seen just this season and really leverage that for a strong piece for contention. But that is kind of the wrap up around the league I have for you guys this week. Quick 20 minutes. We will be back next week when stock is back in action and have a great episode for you. Get into some more discussion and deep dives. But as always, we will see you next week.